Joe Rogan's a great guy, but he's been co-opted.
Joe Rogan, I listened to your latest podcast.
You know Cenk, right?
Putin runs Russia like a mafia boss, which is not how America's won. Now, you might argue, and I think you have a point, because I oppose it. He's like,
oh my God, he felt a tickle all the way to the deepest parts of his fucking ball sack. He's like, you think America's run any better than Russia? That's what he's ready to say. He's got that one loaded up. Oh my God, he's got that one loaded the fuck up. He's ready to go.
You know,
Is it not Pierce?
Is it not Pierce?
This clip is very sad to watch.
Oh, it's the guy from chat.
It's 3.5 minutes. I'll link it down below. Joe Rogan says, F Zelensky, F the people of Ukraine. Just let Russia win. I don't want to get nuked. And, in his house in Texas or whatever. And Joe Rogan's a great guy. I've watched lots of his podcasts with very entertaining guests. But he's been co-opted. And he's been influenced by guests he's had on, like Alex Jones, RFK Jr., Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard. All people who repeat Kremlin propaganda and more or less are working for the Russians. Tim Pool's been on his show, and that guy was getting paid $100,000 a week by the Kremlin to repeat these talking points, to scare Americans, to make Americans terrified of nuclear war. I would love to appear on some of these shows, some of these podcasts, like Lex Friedman or Tom Billio or Graham Stephan's The Iced Coffee Hour, but I can't get these guys to respond to me. I don't understand how they can present themselves as equal opportunists.
But they only have one side of the conversation on over and over again.
Wanting to have a lively debate. And at the moment, they're only having right-wing people who support Russia on their podcasts to make these arguments. So it's shifting the debate. I can feel the shift happening with the media here in the United States.
Joe Rogan, I listened to your latest podcast. I'm sending you this video to let you know that I disagree. You talk about these American weapons being sent to Ukraine, which you believe will lead to the Third World War. So, let me tell you that you're repeating Russian propaganda. Putin's Russia is in trouble, so they want to scare you and people like you. His war was supposed to last 3 days. It has lasted 3 years, thanks to the heroism and sacrifice of us Ukrainians. So you're using the only weapon that Putin really intends to use, propaganda. And this weapon really weakens our democracies. Putin's Russia wants to destroy Ukraine quietly. They want America to stay quiet, not great, but quiet. A great America is not an America that abandons countries that defend freedom with their lives. In short, you see, I have quite a few points of difference. If you invite me on your podcast, we could discuss them like free men.
How did anti-Ukraine become a conservative opinion? It's literally just the populist, isolationist perspective. Like America should be involved in nothing. It's just imagine a 4-year-old thinking of economics and foreign policy. When has isolationism really ever worked for America? It hasn't worked for anybody, but these guys don't believe in history or education or learning or anything. So I mean, what do you want me to say? There's just the firewall has been complete. I think that the election totally vindicated the idea that you don't have to be attached to reality in any way, size, shape, or form. So I mean, there's nothing to say to these people. What could you possibly say?
We finally used long-range missiles at Russia, in particular storms. 12 of them blew up the command center in Kursk region. We don't know the numbers yet, but Russians are screaming nonstop on their channels about big losses in command personnel, both Russian and North Korean. So that happened. And afterwards, there have been a message to a lot of ambassadors, things like that of the United States, of Europeans to hide basically because Russians were supposed to do some major big attack for that. I suppose, because of that decision that to allow Ukraine to finally do something with the missiles we have been given. And we waited for it. Like, everyone was like, goodbye, Ukraine, like, gonna be nuked. Now, finally, Russia will start bombing Ukraine as if, it didn't happen for 3 years. And all of that, like all the Russia propaganda people, the Hinkles, and all of that. And we kind of were very chill, just, expecting a regular mass strike, like with 100 missiles or so, like they do. It wasn't that. It was much smaller. But they did use new missile that they never used, called Rubesh, apparently, which is a huge-ass missile never before used, and they dropped it on Dnipro city. Yeah. So that happened. But, we are still unnuked and still exist. What can you do? So all of that news is interesting and cool. But my question to you, though, is, Cenk, right? Uyghur?
Yep.
I think you, in person even, right?
I've talked to him a lot, yeah.
I will send you a thing on a personal message. Can you explain this man? And people like him? So there are obviously paid by Russia. I have sent you the tweet. On via personal message. So there are people that are paid by Russia that are spreading that nuclear war will happen, World War III, we should drop Ukraine, otherwise World War III. We crossed Putin's red lines 10,000 bajillion times and nothing happened, but they still proceed with that sort of talk, right? There's evil cunts who want us to die and disappear, just genuinely pro-Russian, right? You can be both as well. You can be paid and an evil cunt, and then you can be Cenk. So I don't think it's paid by Russia.
No, it's just, this is the populist signaling on every war thing. Populists in the U.S. at least are just very isolationist and very protectionist. So for foreign policy, they just want to be involved in nothing, and for economics, they just want to tariff and block everything. Basically, that's just and people just think it's better that way. It's ever since the Iraq War, there's this idea that the U.S. shouldn't be involved in anything overseas, basically, is kind of where a lot of the thought is for any of these types of people.
I just, with this tweet, there's literally no difference between him and Donald Trump Jr. In a sense, Donald is somehow more cringe, but, he's Trump, gotta be more cringe, I suppose. But overall, just what would people like him are not paid by Russia, and I don't think he's an evil cunt. He doesn't come across as an evil cunt, right? So it's just what is his suggestion? What are we supposed to do? So he doesn't just give a or he thinks if the entirety of Ukraine's
you're never gonna get the thing is you're never gonna get a real answer from these people, because what these people will do when you start to push them is so you'll point out that well, what if this country is encroaching on another country's territory? What should we do? And then they'll say, well, we shouldn't have been involved in the first place. If America is at fault now for giving Ukraine weapons, then America is also at fault because of NATO expansionism for making Russia invade Ukraine. It's always going to be the West's fault for some reason, and the solution is always going to have been to have never had the West become involved at all. Basically, is what they'll say. Yeah.
But the West wasn't involved. They prohibited fucking everything for 3 years.
I understand that. I don't know. Yeah, you don't have to argue against me. I'm just saying that's what they'll say. They'll say in 2014, the Victoria Nuland call proves that we couped the government in Ukraine, and all of it was set up by the West, and it was NATO expansion, and not an inch eastward, and the promises broke. That's always what the arguments are.
But if you bring up the fact that we weren't in NATO, and our constitution prohibited us joining NATO, and only conversations about joining NATO began after full-scale invasion at all, if you bring any of that up, then what do they say, though?
I don't know. I've never got, most of these people don't want to go into the weeds that much on this because they don't, so, but it's all stupid stuff.
But I wish some of them would just say, people who are afraid of escalation and things like that, who are genuine, who are not doing Russian propaganda, but being basically useful idiots, right? They're I wish they would just be a little bit I don't know, precise, honest is the word, perhaps. What is supposed to happen then? So just what's the plan? Why do they think we should why they expect us to roll over and die? I just don't understand. Like, obviously we don't want to do that, and we won't do that. It's just what's it's, and he's like so pro Gaza, like, Israel genocide, blah blah blah, like all of that, right? And why is it okay to do with Ukraine? We didn't even attack them first, so
yeah. I mean, that's what they. Yeah. I mean, it's stupid, but I mean, yeah. This is just like the populist take on foreign policy is really dumb.
Well, I guess. Do you consider a person like that even like a ally in sort of like Democrats or like liberals and people like that? Because they're not, like, in my opinion, they're like, they're leftoids, and they're like really, I mean, he probably supported Kamala, right? I think.
I mean, it depends on who the person is. I would say Cenk is probably not an ally, but not because of this take. I think there are some dumb. I think there are some dumb like takes on foreign policy for people that can be convinced, but for these people, the facts are not as relevant. It's more of just like a foundation of like America bad and like West bad. So it really doesn't matter what argument you make or what you'll say. There's going to be a reason why they'll support Hamas on October 7th, but they'll be opposed to Ukraine defending itself from Russia. It's because it's all through the lens of like everything in the West is bad, and even if like people in the East are doing bad things, it's really just because of the West. I don't remember if it was Hassan or somebody else was making this argument that like you guys are mad. You guys say that like Arab countries don't have gay rights and all that stuff. It's just because the West bombs them, and like if they'd stop bombing them, they'd probably have like LGBTQ status by now. It's just like stupid. It's like the dumbest shit you've ever heard. But that's like the foundation that all the criticism comes from. So yeah, it's stupid. Yeah.
Hassan said that it's because the West bombs them.
Somebody can find the clip. Somebody can find the clip. I don't remember if Hassan said this or not. I think it might have been, or it might have been somebody different. Somebody can find it, but I don't want to quote 100% of that. But I remember. I feel like I remember hearing that from somebody. So it's stupid,
Oh damn, dude! That's like the most that's. Yeah, well, I don't know if you can show this. Probably you can. Like, there's no blood or anything, but that's like this gigantic missile. I sent you the tweet that they thrown at Dnipro, which is like 6 missiles in a one, I suppose. It's like this gigantic shit that it kind of like does this projectile of like 6 missiles at once.
Yeah, so I don't know if this was actually like I know that people say ICBM. I don't know if this was the missile range or whatever was considered like ICBM class or whatever. But
that's true. Yeah.
I don't know if it was or wasn't. It might be intermediate or whatever. But the some missiles that are, especially ones that you would want to carry like nuclear weapons or whatever, they'll have these warheads that like before they actually impact, they'll split, and then a whole bunch will come off, and it makes it harder to intercept because obviously you've got multiple.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. And they haven't used that one before. They did use the ones that you can attach nuclear shit to, for example, Kinjal. They've thrown a lot of those.
Yeah.
They're super ballistic, supersonic missiles, but there's just no nuclear shit there. They just throw them this way. But this one is new. And people in Ukraine said that it's intercontinental ballistic missile. And there was like a lot of people in Europe as well who said so, but the US said it's not. And they like kind of denied it, and they say it doesn't qualify as an intercontinental ballistic missile for some like very complicated shit. Like I'm not going to make any claims because I personally don't know like if does it qualify or does it not qualify. Like, but there is an interesting thing though that for some reason this time around, like this wasn't even the biggest bomb at all, like not even close to the biggest one, but they somehow knew about this particular missile being dropped in advance, in like almost 15 hours before it happened. So this is kind of strange because there is supposed to be that rule that if a country throws intercontinental ballistic missile, it has to make it known in advance. So people say that they warned American embassy, obviously, because they told their personnel to go away, don't work this day. And it's kind of strange. If it's not an intercontinental missile, then how the fuck they were? I don't know. Like I'm not sure, to be honest with you. At first, I was mad because I thought it would.
If I have to guess, when you're shooting, so a ballistic missile, I think ballistic, means it's not guided once it's been launched. basically. So if you're shooting like these long range like ballistic missiles with these like vehicles, especially for like these are called MIRVs, so multiple independent reentry vehicles with like the warheads that split, because it's so hard to target these. If you're Russia and you're trying not to actually like incur the wrath of the rest of the world, if you know you're going to be shooting at a city but you can't guarantee how accurate the shot will be, then you might reach out ahead of time to let like Americans or other people in embassies know like, hey, you guys might want to leave here, because if they were to do an attack like this, they couldn't guarantee the accuracy, and like 17 Americans in an embassy end up dead. That becomes like a way more insane thing for Russia to deal with. So that'd be my guess.
Yeah, but the Ukrainian civilians being killed is fine, right? But that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucked up, but I mean, that would be the thought process, right?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was mad at first, to be honest. I was like, they're denying that it happened, because they denied, for example, that North Koreans entered the war for a long time, and they did. It was true, right? Our report said so. South Korean reports, intelligence said so. And I was like, it's this thing again, like America denying because they don't want to do anything about it, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe not. Maybe this time it's just technicality and it doesn't really qualify as intercontinental. Well, so, yeah, that's not the point. But I'm not really happy about this thing, obviously. We got used to COBs, which are guided bombs that they throw from planes quite a bit. And it took a while to get used to those. And now we will take a while to get used to these ones as well, I suppose. A friend of mine from Dnipro, the city that it was used on, said that it was like so fucking loud that he like thought that they were like unironically nuked.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of people typing a lot of crazy
missiles at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like a little bit spooked, to say the least. But then, I kind of expect it to be dropped on us anytime soon, because, Kharkiv, it's a classic. You gotta bomb Kharkiv. Usually in the morning, though, so maybe in 5 or 7 in the morning or something like that.
Well, Jesus, stay safe at least, damn.
Yeah. How exactly? It like takes 3 minutes to get here, so like you can't really go anywhere, pretty much. Yeah, I have a feeling that my corridor would not protect me from this missile. It's a hunch, though. Yeah. Well, anyhow, yeah. Thanks for the Cenk thing, because I'm just genuinely like looking at his stuff. I'm just like, what is this guy? Like he doesn't give me the vibes of Russian sellout. He doesn't give me the evil count. So what is Cenk? So yeah, apparently just a left-wing populist guy.
Yeah, that's all of them are going to be like that. All the anti-establishment guys are going to have the same takes on that. So
yeah. Oh, last thing. What do you think about like Biden giving this like permission so quickly when it's became clear that Trump is, going to be into power? And yeah, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I feel like all of my thoughts about enabling more Ukrainian firepower, all of them are going to be like double-edged. It'll be like, oh, this is good, but like, why didn't this happen so much earlier? Or oh, this is good, but what needed to change for this to be enabled? So yeah.
All right. Literally me. I'm not gonna lie, I should be grateful, and I am. I was very happy when we blew up that command center, but as were other people. But it sounds ungrateful, and I know that. But I literally like I nearly fucking vomited when I saw this permission. Because it grieved me so much, because it took so much time, right? And so many people died, and so many cities were destroyed. About 6, right? Cities completely ruined. And it's not that it would stop every bombing, obviously not, right? But it would have helped quite a bit, especially with the CUB problem and glide bomb problem. And I was grieved. Also, you have to be like a straight up retard not to understand that they could have made this decision literally years ago, like a year or 2 ago.
Yeah.
Just they didn't do it because of the election, I believe. That's my opinion. I don't know if it's yours or anything, but I think
maybe
they didn't want to push away like so many isolationist people. Like Americans is like not particularly like interested in the Ukraine stuff, obviously, and a lot of people on the left are very isolationist and don't want to help Ukraine at all. Think it's low NATO, no Cenk types, basically, right? And but they lost the election anyway. So
yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Well, yeah, at least we got that permission. I should look at the positive, I guess, before Trump, sinks the boat.
Hopefully, yeah. Or hopefully it does. But good luck. Stay safe. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Vladimir Putin runs Russia like a mafia boss, which is not how America's won. Now, you might argue, and I think you have a point, because I oppose it.
He's like, oh my God. He felt a tickle all the way to the deepest parts of his fucking ball sack. He's like, you think America's run any better than Russia? That's what he's ready to say. He's got that one loaded up. Oh my God, he's got that one loaded the fuck up. He's ready to go.
Is it not Pierce?
Is it not Pierce?
The Iran war very vociferously. But do you think America runs around poisoning opponents in streets in Europe, for example?
No, but we did in South America and Iraq, and Syria. Do you think it rigs an election so that 90% of the people feel obliged to vote for someone, etc.?
Well, so here's the thing, Pierce, right? A lot of times there's, in more primitive countries, there's a more naked form of corruption that is more brutal in a way and is more obvious. So yes, it's true that America doesn't resort to kind of some of these tactics. What America will do, right? Like if we don't like the fact that, say, Yanukovych, the democratically elected president of Ukraine.
Oh, we're doing this one. Oh, I'm sorry. We got to go conspiratorial. Why point to the actual of America when we can invent ups? Okay.
Decided he didn't want to join the European Union, instead wanted to do a partnership with Putin. No, we won't poison him, but we'll just foment color-coded revolution, overthrow that government, and install Victoria Nuland's new hand-picked members. Now, other countries who don't have the power to do that result to these other tactics. I'm not supporting any of it. I think all of it's wrong.
Oh, please, I love this guy. I don't even remember his name, but I was on a show with him before. He's a ex-politician? Was he a Republican congressman? I don't remember his name. He's awesome, though. He's awesome. Joe Walsh, that's it, yeah. Awesome. Oh my God. Please tell me he's about to lay the fuck into this. Please tell me he's about to lay the fuck into this clown. Please.
Let's be honest here. I mean, like, America has been the most war-hungry country in the world over the last 25 years. And why can't we admit that?
Dave, can I just ask one real quick question? All the mistakes we've made aside, is America a force for good around the world, yes or no? A force for good?
No. I think this is a childish, simplistic question. We are a force for good and a force for bad. And these wars. Listen, Joe. The thing about it is the problem is that. Okay, Joe, you asked. I'm answering your question. See, the problem is,
how come we're not ending wars in Armenia or South Sudan?
Yes, listen. This is the point here is that. I'm sorry. Look, the point here is that the issue is that I don't think you actually know anything about what you're talking about, and so when you say that the war in Iraq was a mistake, like it was a whoopsie. No, it wasn't. Go read the Project for a New American Century. They were planning, the neoconservatives who took control of the George W. Bush administration were planning this war for years before 9/11. The weapons of mass destruction and the Saddam. So let me finish the point instead of cutting me off by saying you agree with me. Because yes, I know you agree because I'm making an undeniably great point. The weapons of mass destruction, the Saddam.
I just said, hey, well, you know what, Dave? You're so smart.
I'm not even that smart. I'm not that smart. I'm just arguing with brain-dead morons.
You couldn't answer a simple question. Is America historically, have we been generally a force for good around the world? Yes or no?
Again, I'll answer the question again. It's a dumb, stupid, second grader question. We've been both a force for good and a force for bad.
Okay, look, very quickly.
How we've been a force for good in the world.
Very quickly, to wrap this part of it.
Warfare machine.
All right, Dave, to wrap this part of it, you haven't actually talked about Marco Rubio. What is your objection to him being Secretary of State?
Pierce, this is the fun thing about doing your show. The second you said that, I completely forgot the question was about Marco Rubio. I didn't even remember we were talking. So essentially,
and it doesn't matter.
The point. So Marco Rubio, is he? Oh, yeah. Okay, so the point that I was making initially is that Marco Rubio is, to his core, somebody who supports the neoliberal, neoconservative foreign policy of the last 25 years. He's somebody who's every one of those disastrous wars that I just mentioned, he was there cheerleading for them and demonizing everybody who opposed them. He's also a hawk on Palestine. He's a hawk on South America. And I just think that in general, particularly with our country being $35+ trillion in debt, having all of these disastrous wars over the last few decades, and Donald Trump, at least somewhat, symbolizing a break from that tradition and an America first, more non-interventionist kind of policy, I'm very disappointed to see him lead the State Department.
Before we let you go, I want to pivot completely because in the weekend that Mike Tyson made his comeback, obviously losing to Jake Paul in that kind of exhibition fight, Sylvester Stallone, Rocky Balboa, welcomed Donald Trump on stage by comparing him to this guy. Let's watch.
Okay.
Remain in Mexico and certain reversals of Trump-era immigration policies, which at the time I didn't give Trump credit for because he wasn't really applauded for it. And I didn't realize that, you know, the Remain in Mexico policy was actually very successful. And Biden reversing it did lead to the crisis at the border that ended up being a political liability.
Not really. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Remain in Mexico came online like 2019. I don't want to say it was like 40 or 50,000 people, maybe a little bit more were like held because of Remain in Mexico. Remain in Mexico on its own didn't really do that much. No, it wasn't.
That backed him up into a corner, and suddenly he's hitting up Republicans in the Senate, asking them to write legislation that Republicans would like. So there are some flaws on the left for sure. And I think it's important to be real about those flaws and certain reversals of Trump-era immigration policies, which at the time I didn't give Trump credit for because...
The Richard dude is legitimately hard to figure out because he says some things, he roasts the fuck out of conservatives. He seems like he genuinely does. And then sometimes he's posting crazy shit and he voted for Trump, which I think is dumb. I'm pretty sure when I'm reading this, I'm pretty sure this is him making fun of conservatives and their stance on Ukraine. I'm pretty sure. This has nothing to do with actually sympathizing with Russia. For a small government party, taking a stand on Ukraine aid as the #1 priority simply makes sense given what a huge portion of the budget it is. Ukraine losing will save Social Security. This is like a troll. This is like I feel like just reading this is a pretty obvious troll, right? Like Ukrainian spending it's not at all like a huge portion. That's not at all. That's not true. And then Drew replies to him and he's like, what percentage of US GDP is taken up by Ukraine aid? And then Richard responds, at least 40% last I checked. Like this is an obvious troll, right? It must be. This is just like it's a super obvious troll. That would be $9 trillion a year. You're an idiot. Don't speak in public again. And then he says, liberal elites just don't care about regular Americans dying of fentanyl, but some of us do, and we're sick of taking orders from you rich men on the coasts. Like, he's trolling here, right? Like, and he does these. He tweets every now and then. We're just trolls, and then people fall for it. But I'm like, pretty sure he's trolling the conservative talking points here. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure.